The guy that has KO'd Luffy, the main character, more than twice. One of the times he lost because of a distraction, but another times he just beat Luffy fair and square. He's a being despite his monstrous size. The main character Luffy ends up learning an ability to where he can kind of see a few seconds in the future, and despite him knowing what a character's about to do, Kaido is so fast that even with this technique, he was still able to blitz a being that can see what you're about to do before you do it, and he still can blitz you. That's how fast Kaido is. Keep in mind, in the past, when his ability to see the future wasn't as strong, his haki was a lot lower, Luffy could dodge attacks from pacifistas. You know, the pacifista that can shoot beams that are considered beams of light. Luffy considers this too slow. These pacifista are confirmed to have beams similar to Kizaru's laser. Kizaru's a being that can actually turn into light and can shoot beams of light. And they reproduce that ability they're mimicking. He asks, have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Yet, a Luffy that can see seconds in the future could not move out of the way of Kaido blitzing him. That's how fast he is. Let's analyze Kaido, though. The government. Pirates. The oceans themselves are vast, and throughout this land is held a lot of mystery. One of the many big mysteries being the devil fruits. Why the heck is there super fruits that give people powers just by eating them? The character I'm going over today has eaten a devil fruit and is super strong and powerful without the fruit, but the fruit helps him out with that. He has his own crew just like other pirates. He's the captain of the crew, and the crazy part is he's strong like this, but his crew members are actually strong as heck, but none of them can touch him. So in the One Piece world, there's this bounty system that the government puts on pirates that are really strong and dangerous. In the world of One Piece, bounties is sort of a way to understand a character's combat abilities, but that's not the only way to determine a character's bounty. When it comes to bounties, Kaido is considered an emperor, which is the reason why his bounty is so crazy high. Only those surpassing him is Whitebeard and Roger at the time. See, the thing is, Kaido is one of the emperors of the sea, not to mention there's not that many emperors of the sea at the time, so this pretty much confirms in the eyes of the government he's one of the strongest pirates in the world. But let's analyze him. Right off gate, it's obvious that he's a physical threat. I mean, just from the sheer size of Kaido, like you don't even see his face in this particular angle. Look how a normal sized human looks in comparison to him, so obviously he's strong just from pure size alone. I think we all can agree a character that's bigger has a genetic advantage, so where they won't have to work as hard to become top tier versus somebody that's smaller, we could agree with that, right? But here's the thing. There's characters that's actually bigger than him that are nowhere near his power level, so his size isn't all that makes him special. Matter of fact, there's beings on his same crew, like Jack, for example, that's nowhere near his power level, but one can even say that he's even bigger than Kaido himself when it comes to pure size. Because even looking at the size of normal people compared to his size, himself being like 20 feet tall, even when characters can predict your movements by reading the future, because haki, when it gets good enough, you can pretty much read the future 5 seconds or 10 seconds in the future. He can move so fast at this size, even when characters like the main character himself, Luffy himself, try to move out of the way of his attack, he can still be too fast, showing he has absurd speed for his size. Considering that Kaido was considered the strongest creature alive after Whitebeard met his end or whatever, when it comes to lifting strength, just with his muscles, is obvious. Whatever Luffy can do when it comes to lifting weights, of course Kaido can do better. Back in the day, before Luffy even got like all these new forms, like 2 years ago, Luffy can still move buildings with his physical strength. We know at least he can lift 100,000 tons easily if characters like Luffy back in the day 2 years ago could do it. And, you know, Kaido was definitely stronger than Luffy 2 years ago. Y'all remember when Luffy in his base form, without even counting Bounce Man or whatever, was able to one-shot a giant in strength? This same giant was able to counter something 10,000 tons of destructive power. Yes, this giant was this strong, 10,000 tons. He was able to overpower, even though this was high difficulty, he was still able to pull it off with his raw strength. Luffy was in a higher form and tried to go against Kaido, and it's obvious he's nowhere near Kaido's strength, proving that Kaido can probably lift 10,000 tons or overpower 10,000 tons of force with ease and stuff. It's crazy to think about, but this giant is like 3 Kaidos stacked on top of each other when it comes to height. And I find it funny that despite this size difference, this absolutely doesn't mean nothing, because Kaido's absolutely leagues upon leagues stronger than this guy. And Kaido's not small. Kaido's like 20 feet tall. It's just this being is like 70 feet tall. One can say his weapon itself is bigger than normal humans. I mean, we see him swinging the club and slinging beings through walls and stuff, and they go flying. He can make one of his underlings fly that far. Like, even young him, you can see him tossing folks aside. They brag about how strong he is, and he's only 15 years old. So there's a lot of reasons why he's strong. He's one of the many characters in the show that has eaten a mysterious fruit, one of the more rare type of fruits he's eaten, becoming a mythical zone. Kaido ate the fish fruit, apparently. It's a mythical zoin type fruit. He turned into a mythical dragon. more specifically an Azura dragon, it's obvious that it takes inspiration from myth. Obviously, One Piece is its own thing, but in the myth, it was basically a dragon god. So one can say, since Kaido ate this fruit, the One Piece versions of a dragon god, basically mythical Zoan type. So one can say Kaido became one with a dragon god-esque type fruit, which is part of the reason why he has different forms or modes to increase his statistics or raw power in general. Like, you got his base form, his dragon form, and his form where he pretty much fuses his humanist type form with his dragon form hybrid mode, which is implied to be his mightiest state. And if you see him in this mode, he's getting serious. I mean, it's even stated out their mouth that when he goes in these different forms, they say that his haki's getting stronger, aka he's getting stronger in different modes. His haki gets stronger in he uses different techniques, like a drunken mode, one could say for Kaido. When he's in his drunken mode, he can get more dangerous than he usually would be. There's perks to being basically becoming one with a dragon. Like, one could say he can straight up fly or float. Being a dragon deity or one with a dragon basically gives him the ability to be able to lift up entire islands. With his ability to be able to make stuff float, make himself float, he can lift up entire islands while he's battling on it at the same time. Because dragons can fly through the air by creating something called flame clouds. Keep in mind, he was sustaining the island floating like this while he was battling Luffy the entire time. Proving with his flame clouds, he can lift billions of tons at least, or millions of tons at the very least. Or produce a blast of flame because he's technically a dragon deity, which gives him blast power. Even when he goes in his hybrid mode, he can do his techniques like this. Kaido can do this dragon twister technique when he goes into his dragon mode, making multiple tornadoes, basically. One can basically say manipulating the wind. He can blast with slashes from his mouth. Wind slashes, one can say. Seems to be able to spam it. And one can say he can just straight up project lightning, like lightning projection, stating his roar turns into lightning. On top of him being basically a dragon deity, due to him being a top tier in the One Piece world, he knows this mysterious technique of energy that lies within everybody. Haki is the latent power that Kaido is one of the best at in the verse. Explained on occasions like this, it's the ability to sense a being's presence, spirit, or aura. Basically giving a character super senses. This is something Kaido also knows. They're explaining it here. It can practically make you sense what somebody's about to do before they even do it. That's the ability known as Haki. Kaido knows this. It's because of techniques like this, he can sense beings that are not necessarily in front of him. I mean, his physical strength is crazy just from his sheer size. I mean, his muscles are huge, but he can also put armor or aura around his hands or weapons that he uses to enhance his strikes even further with Haki. It's like invisible armor. That's one of the reasons why you don't actually have to make direct contact and the characters' attacks can hit each other, especially when you're in the Yonko or Emperor tier. Kaido knows this ability as well. Basically, when you see characters in the show make their fists black, just know that it's their inner spirit will that they can manifest on their body to make armor for themselves. Kaido knows this technique. Most characters in the show aren't this potent with Haki, but Kaido's so potent with Haki at all times, basically, that even certain abilities that certain characters have when it comes to their superpowers get completely nullified. Like, there's this character known as Law who has a really busted Haxie type devil fruit power where he can literally make a room and anything inside this bubble. Like, he can make this gigantic bubble around the area, right? Anything inside the bubble he can pretty much control or cut up as he sees fit. Like an example, if he wanted to teleport this rock right here, he could trade places with this rock over here if he wished. Like, that's the type of stuff he can do with this room. Same with teleporting characters that are inside this room. But when he tried to do this to Kaido, he can't just send him wherever he pleases because his Haki's too strong to move him, but he likes to drink too much. As strong as he is, he likes to use this melee weapon. I mean, the guy's dubbed the world's strongest creature by the narrator, so literally stated he's the embodiment of might. Matter of fact, Kaido himself only considers few people on his level in the whole world. One of them obviously being Whitebeard and Roger. When you look at all the facts about it, it makes sense. His title is not a fraud because Kaido himself wanted to take down Whitebeard, somebody that can rival Roger himself, the mightiest pirate in the world, one that became the king of pirates. Whitebeard, even while old, is a being thanks to his devil fruit and everything put together. He has the destructive power to where an island wouldn't survive if he just kept going crazy. These other emperors with these crazy high bounties that are not as big as his, like Red Hair, he got in a scuffle with off screen. Kaido's one of the Yonko that could possibly take down Blackbeard. I mean, just to start it off with a bang, let's just say it. Kaido can level an entire island, guys. Because Blackbeard is the captain of his own crew, and he has the highest bounty in his crew. Even members, underlings of Blackbeard's crew that have a lesser bounty than Kaido have the ability to literally turn into an actual island, or one could say become an actual island, because he ate the island fruit. And I'm pretty sure if captain level beings in the military that's not even considered top tier or nothing can damage mountainside structures, like, or even damage the island man, I'm pretty sure Kaido can hit hard enough to split an island right down the middle with his strikes or attacks. If an underling of another Yonko can literally turn into an island and he's still not top of the food chain level. Okay, in the government, the higher rank you are, That lets you know how strong of a fighter they are in the Marines. You got beings way up here in the top of the food chain when it comes to Marine powerhouses. Navy admirals literally state that Kaido's presence is the reason why he didn't come there earlier. That Kaido in general kept beings away. I mean, you're going to see this stuff later on in this video, but when a character can hit hard and they affect the clouds, a massive amount of clouds with one strike or something, it kind of adds up with them being able to level an island and stuff. It kind of makes sense with the lore, but I get to this later. But I mean, Blackbeard himself called Kaido a monster. Big Mama, somebody that's also a Yonko or Emperor of the Sea who's top tier like him, during the point in the story where Luffy wasn't on Kaido's level yet, he was pretty much talking about how he's going to take down Kaido. Big Mama didn't believe it. She said, "You're not beating that thing," implying the world's strongest creature title is legit. Not to mention she would know because they clashed, so she would know what she's talking about. It's hard to believe back in the day he was actually on the same pirate crew with Whitebeard himself and even Big Mom, another Yonko tier, them all being under this being known as the Beck. This was years and years ago. It makes you wonder though, how strong was he this many years ago? Pretty sure he was still pretty strong though. He was still in his 20s. You guys remember Doflamingo? He's basically the Joker. If the Joker from DC Comics wasn't anime, he's a sick person. Doflamingo being strong in his own right, being able to easily slice large meteors into pieces if he feels like it. Despite him being this strong, there's heavy implications that he is no match for Kaido, saying if Kaido was to get mad at Doflamingo, he would be killed. This should not be surprising at this point, the fact that it's implied he can triple mountains. If Doflamingo can cut mountains or Kaido can destroy mountains, this should be like super easy for him too, implying he would kill somebody like Doflamingo. There's these samurai in Wano that are, each of them are ridiculously strong, right? I want to give you an example of how strong each of them are, for example. There's 9 of them. Okay, you see this guy Jack, right? He's an underling of Kaido, somebody that's pretty strong too, and one of Kaido's underlings that has an 1 billion bounty, for example, has major issues with one of these samurai. This is just to give you an idea of how strong these samurai we're talking. They can give his underlings that have a bounty of 1 billion mad issues. As you can see, it's not an easy fight, them two going at it. Kaido's subordinate was struggling against. Kaido got jumped by like 9 different beings all at once, catching Kaido off guard, might I add. But despite him being caught off guard and jumped, it didn't seem to do that much damage to Kaido to the point where he couldn't continue fighting. Despite all these beings jumping him and their power, Kaido said, "You samurai ain't gonna be like the one that gave him his scar," saying y'all attacks is too shallow, y'all don't have enough power to open up that old scar. By the way, he did not need his dragon form to beat a team that jumped him and caught him off guard. He still was able to win in his base form, y'all. Yeah, pretty much all of them got laid out by Kaido. One of the 9 samurai warriors gets his sword broken. Kaido's hitting him so much harder that his sword itself actually broke, putting him near death's door, basically. Remember how earlier I brought up Doflamingo? You remember how big Dressrosa was, right? An actual island. Do you remember this punch that Luffy did to fold a nice chunk of Dressrosa, the island? Not the whole island, but just a nice chunk of it. Multiple city blocks, one could say. This version of Luffy punched this hard. Luffy used the same form against Kaido, used a whole bunch of punches. Kaido's in his base form. He's durable enough to withstand it without any issues, really. And can Speed Blitz one-shot him with his strikes that easy. I want you guys to keep note that Luffy in his base state, without even using that muscle balloon form, can actually damage beings that are the size of mountains. Like, for example, this being was made of stone and buildings could fit on him and stuff, or an entire town could fit on him. Literally none of this matters because Luffy can still damage such beings that are mountain-sized. And Kaido, you already know he can one-shot Luffy in one of his best states at the time period. Is anybody doubting that Kaido can hit hard enough to tremble mountains? Destroying mountains for somebody this top tier when lower tiers can do it should be child's play for somebody like Kaido. His base form should have no problem leveling a mountain or mountains with an S, just like how his dragon form, his blast power, blast breath, can blow away mountaintops. That makes sense. Yeah, look how the mountaintop looks. Mountain slicing or mountain destruction is something that happens a lot in this anime, so it makes sense for somebody like Kaido to have the blast power to destroy something like this with his blast. I mean, he blasted Luffy through the entire island itself. You know, the island that's in the air. He blasted Luffy through that island. Speaking of mountain level and stuff, when Kaido does his hybrid mode, whatever he can do in his base, he can do better like this. Him and Big Mom did like a combined attack called the Conquest of the Seas, where they make like a gust of air with their attack. One might as well call it an energy blast at this point, because the blast was this big compared to the entire island. Yes, this is an entire island they're fighting on. And Kaido was half the force needed to pretty much break all, well, not all the bones, but he broke at least 20 or 30 bones because of this attack when Zoro tried to counter it. Zoro is somebody we know for a fact can slice up mountains with ease without even doing his mightiest sword technique. His attacks can hurt somebody as strong as Law and Zoro. It's like a common thing in One Piece when two top-tier beings clash. Their blows against one another. This case is no exception. Kaido and Big Mama clashing split the skies themselves. I mean, I'm not no calculation expert or nothing, but I've seen folks calculate how much energy would it take for their strikes to reach the clouds. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to know that a clash like this has to be impressive. If you know the ground is way down, like we humans are on the ground, right? For your strikes to reach all the way from the ground all the way to the clouds, not only touching the clouds, but parting them, that logically would take a lot of force. There's been YouTubers and calculators online, not my calculations, but others online have calculated that in order to be able to do something like this, if we assume the One Piece clouds are as high as the ones we have in real life, it would take the force similar to be able to wipe out a country or a continent or multiple continents. Some even calculate. If we were to take those calculations seriously, that would be like saying Kaido can tremble an entire country, destroy multiple cities with ease, destroy one entire country or multiple continents or one continent based on folks' calculations on their attacks being able to reach that far, their attacks being that strong of a radius. And think about it, if he can do this kind of stuff in his base form, whatever he can do in his base form, his dragon hybrid states can do better. It just increases his statistics. And if I'm being honest, him splitting the clouds can't really be considered an outlier. So one could say you really have to take the calculations seriously because it's just a common theme in One Piece for these characters to do this. Cloud splitting is a big part of the One Piece narrative of them splitting the sky. So it can't really be considered an outlier. But it's cool if you don't want to take that seriously. All I know is that Kaido kept on getting W's on the main character Luffy himself. Even when Luffy is in his most legendary form, Gear 5, when he basically becomes a deity as well, he can still damage Luffy in this titanic new form with blood leaking. Y'all remember that time Luffy made his fist like way bigger than Kaido and almost as big as the island itself and was going to punch through the island itself. Despite all this, Kaido coded himself as a flaming dragon. Kaido clashed with an attack this crazy for quite a bit. Despite Luffy getting this new legendary form, he couldn't just outright one-shot him still. I will admit though, Kaido did lose this particular exchange of raw power, but yo, this dude gave him a war. But yeah, this statement right here pretty much confirmed they can at the very least level an island. That's not an exaggeration when his fist is this big. So even if you don't want to believe the multiple country stuff or continent stuff, we know for a fact they can at least level multiple islands at the very least with their strikes. Because that Luffy punch was going to punch through the island. In the anime version, it was stated that the island can't take the power of their class, which makes sense with the other feats and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of beings in this One Piece world that can technically just blow away an island that are lower tier than Kaido. I mean, you got lightning Logia level beings like Enel that can make blasts, that can blow away an entire island with the destructive power in an instant. He even said erase the entirety of Skypiea, the whole island, Sky Island, so nobody can escape. So he implying that he was going to do it on, like pretty much on the spot. Like we probably won't ever see these two interact, but I'm pretty sure if this blast that can level an island was to come at Kaido, Kaido could hit it back away to show his destructive power. I mean, if you're a One Piece watcher, common sense would just tell you whatever Enel could blast out with when it comes to destructive capacity, Kaido can do better. He's the strongest creature for a reason, or label that for a reason, you know? So it's pretty much confirmed that Kaido can level or tremble an island, or I would say it's more reasonable to say tremble or delete multiple islands. I mean, this guy lifted up an island with his powers while also fighting a top tier emperor level being like Luffy in Gear 5. And it would be weird if he couldn't devastate an island when there's characters he's stronger than that literally have the island fruit, but in the lore, he's still stronger than characters like that, you know? You got occasions like this in cover stories with Enel. You got occasions like this where Enel created such a big explosion of lightning to where people that were looking at the moon could see it from Earth. Like, what the heck? Talking about the moon explodes while watching the moon, people notice this madness? Let me stop. And Kaido's stronger than beings like this. You know what? Let me stop. But yeah, guys, you gotta respect Kaido. I mean, this guy fought everybody under the sun in one night, basically. Absurd stamina, fought Luffy, fought his family members, like his daughter, for example. Took team-up attacks from Kid, Luffy, and Law. Even defeated Kid in the earlier saga. But do you respect him? But before I get going, everybody, I gotta say thanks for the donation, everybody. Helps out a lot. Respect Kaido, strongest creature for a reason. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.